Welcome back to Uncivil Law, where we learn through the misfortunes of others. So, if killing Peanut the squirrel wasn't enough, the state of Tennessee has one better as a deputy decides to kill 7 dogs for no apparent reason. So, imagine that you're out at dinner and you come home to find your house turned into a bit of a war zone. And it's not from burglars, but from the very people meant to protect and serve. Your dogs, 7 of them, have been slaughtered, and their blood is currently staining your sanctuary. 7 of your beloved dogs were allegedly executed by Deputy Connor Branken during an animal welfare check. This guy doesn't seem like he fully understood the assignment now, does he? So, how exactly does a deputy sworn to uphold the law end up at the center of a crime scene of his own making with 7 canine victims? Well, today we're going to unpack the case against Braken, explore the laws he's accused of breaking, and try to explore just how he thinks that he can one-up the ATF when it comes to assassinating dogs. Our story takes place on November the 4th of 2024 in Bethel Springs, Tennessee, a relatively quiet community, and this one shattered by gunfire. Deputy Braken responded to a call about alleged malnourishment and abandoned dogs. Now, one might think that you might respond by rescuing the dogs, perhaps putting them in some kind of animal shelter, sending them to a vet, seeing if they need help. But instead of a rescue operation, what we got instead was a scene out of John Wick, except, this time with 7 dogs. When Braken arrived at the property, for reasons that are still under investigation, he opened fire on 7 dogs with his service weapons. Kevin Dismuke, the dog's owner, was out to dinner. By the time he returned home from a lovely night out, the carnage inside his home was complete. Inside his RV, he found his dogs dead, some near the door, others deeper into the trailer. Only one of his 8 dogs, a dog named Max, survived by hiding under the bed. Now, Deputy Branken claims that he was cleared by his supervisor to humanely euthanize the animals due to their alleged poor condition, which doesn't sound right at all. I mean, just one guy making the call all by himself, and a police officer at that, not anyone trained in animals. Now, Dismuke disputes this, saying the dogs were healthy, and he has veterinary records of only a few weeks ago to prove it. So how exactly did animal welfare translate into this animal execution? Under Tennessee law, aggravated cruelty to animals is more than neglect. It's intentional infliction of pain or death without justification. Now, shooting 7 dogs doesn't exactly scream justified, especially when their health and living conditions are contested, and the owner has a recent vet report to show that they were relatively healthy. Reckless endangerment also applies because Braken fired a rifle into the RV and around a residential neighborhood, which isn't exactly the most prudent behavior. Neighbors reported hearing multiple shots, startled by the number of rounds. Shooting into a trailer isn't just reckless, it's also a potential safety hazard for anyone that happens to be nearby. The officers claim that he was cleared to euthanize the dogs raises more questions than it answers if we even believe it at all. Who gave this alleged order? And how was it done? Was it a casual shrug over the radio? No documentation relating to this so-called clearance has surfaced. And why would anyone approve shooting dogs without exhausting other options, like contacting animal control and seeing what the danger to the animals really was? The owner's veterinary records challenge the claims that the dogs were malnourished or suffering. If the dogs were healthy, which does appear to be apparent, this undermines the defense entirely. It seems like he was just out to kill dogs because that's what he wanted to do on that particular day. Of course, when you have a deputy who's tasked with protecting lives ends up taking them in a cavalier way, even if those are canine lives, it shakes the public trust to the core, and rightfully so. How can communities feel safe when officers turn their deadly weapons on defenseless animals? This case has exposed glaring gaps in training, supervision, and oversight. The officer had been on the job for less than a month, so how exactly was he adequately prepared to handle an animal welfare check? Clearly he wasn't. What about his supervisor's alleged clearance? If at all true, it might point to a systematic failure that goes beyond one rogue deputy. The public outcry, of course, has been swift, with many calling for stricter protocols around the use of force for non-threatening situations. And if this is how the deputy handled dogs, what might he have done in a situation involving humans? It raises serious questions about training protocol. So the officer is facing 7 counts of aggravated cruelty and 8 counts of reckless endangerment. Potential prison time for up to 6 years per charge. But will it be enough to bring closure to the owner and his wife? This case, of course, isn't just about punishing the deputy. It's about sending a message. Law enforcement officers, of course, are not above the law, and when they misuse power in this horrible way, they must be held accountable. The owners will never get their dogs back, but maybe they'll be able to find some measure of justice. But now I'd like to turn things over to you for some questions and ask you a little bit, what do you think? First of all, this whole thing about clearance from his supervisor, do you think that actually happened, or do you think it's just him flailing at the wind looking for an excuse for poor judgment? Do you think the laws around animal cruelty and law enforcement should be tougher, or do you think that this punishment is already adequate? And if this were a case involving humans instead of dogs, would the legal response here have been swifter or more severe? Let me know what you think in the comment section below, because these dogs deserve nothing less. Until next time, I've been Uncivil Law, and remember to keep it uncivil out there.